Hey, welcome back to the project. We are now officially halfway through the year. Congratulations on making it this far. Unbelievable that we're at 182 sessions. Here's what we're going to work on today. On the CrossFit main site is a prescription for some overhead squatting, which certainly has a lot of midline stabilization demands. It's probably the best kind of indicator, parlor trick of your performance and of your movement. It kind of shows this integration of shoulders into chest into hips, hips into ankles, all the lies. If you've got one little lie on this thing, it's going to come up. Oftentimes people in the physical therapy clinic come and see me and they're like, Kelly, I'm having a hard time overhead squatting. Can't get my shoulders back. And we're like, dude, it's not your shoulders. So a couple days ago we hit, kind of opened up the hips for some deep snatch work with the dumbbell. Same strategy could be employed here. But what we're going to talk about today is the kind of issue of the high pull. Is that when we see athletes in a high pulling position, whether it's Olympic lifting or otherwise, one of the issues is when the athlete gets into a bad position or is missing some of the range of motion of their shoulder. Specifically what ends up happening is that shoulder comes forward. And my athletes we see that are kind of big and strong, Dave Lipson, for example, on the website today, is a very, very capable athlete, brutally strong, and he can get through some of this in 2.5 minutes, where he can compensate because he's strong enough for maybe some bad positioning, if he had bad positioning. But for the rest of us, what ends up happening is that when I end up kind of working in a bad position or a weakened position where I'm having to really work at the end ranges of my good positioning, it costs me a little bit more than if it's just automatic. And then come back into a movement like the sumo deadlift high pull or pulling up in an upright row effect. One of the things that's nice about this movement is that when we put it in, it's the best screen I've ever seen for shoulders coming forward. If we see lack of internal rotation, remember, God has given you enough range of motion to basically hold a barbell to your stomach, keep your shoulders in a nice neutral position, wound up in this position. And if I'm missing that, no wonder we see Olympic lifting coaches cue to try to keep the elbows high, otherwise people are pulling forward. When people are missing this internal rotation, shoulder comes forward. It's the same fault we see on the muscle up, on the ring dip, when that shoulder gets loaded. Same thing happens as I start to pull, I start to compensate. And if that shoulder's forward, I'm pulling in a weak position, I'm going to have to do a bunch of other things. And this is one of the reasons I think we see a lot of athletes pull early into clean, is that as their shoulders have come forward, it's a result of missing the internal rotation, being able to actually kind of break the bar, being in a good, strong pulling position. So today, when you're working on this thing, if you see this happening, this kind of hands together, shoulders forward pulling, oftentimes it's a dead giveaway that we're seeing an athlete. I've never seen anyone injure themselves in this movement, specifically because if you're in a bad position, you're going to be like, ow. And that tells you that obviously you can't be pulling in this position. To demystify or debunk one of the kind of common stretches we see athletes doing and working on internal rotation is the sleeper stretch. The problem with the sleeper stretch is that it looks like I'm working internal rotation, I'm contracting, relaxing, but if I stand up in this position, this is basically the same position that's a weak pulling position. What I definitely don't want to do is internally rotate from a weakened scapular kind of poor position. So this is my kind of defense. We want to move away from that sleeper stretch because it's basically the same thing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to work on some internal rotation today. We're going to work on getting that bar overhead so that we can do a more effective pull, keep my shoulders back, and work from a better position. First thing, grab your jump stretch band, wind it up behind the back, and then I'm going to really try to keep my shoulder back, and I'm just going to let this thing distract, and I can add a little rotation, and then I'm also going to attach my neck in here. So just add that neck in here, hand behind back, it's simple. Here's the first one, just get a little bit of a pull in the front of the shoulder here. The distraction of the band or the traction really gives me nice positioning, keeps my shoulder pulling back, and then again I can work on pulling that hand internally and externally rotate. Contract, tight, 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 and release, and then hang out for 10 seconds here. End range, keep kind of taking up the slack. If I don't want to tie the neck in, I don't have to. And then again, tight, 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 release. And we're going to hit this for 2 minutes for a minimum dose. That's homework number 1. Tie in the front of the shoulder. You can stretch in the front of the shoulder, and it should improve. Oh, hey, snap. One of the things that we see is that just like when athletes are missing internal rotation and extension, this mass is tight. When this mass is tight, we miss internal rotation and extension too, which is what that pulling movement is. Second, let's work on some overhead. Double up that band. Wind that thing up. Remember, always looking that your body is going to trick you into dumping off torque. And that torque is usually it's the opposite motion. So my default position here, you'll notice, is hand down, no bueno. I want to try to be externally rotated overhead into that good kind of active shoulder position Mike Bergner talks about, where we talk about getting the arm forward and pressing tall. Here, what I'm going to do today, instead of just hitting that lat and opening that overhead position, I'm going to go ahead and cue some external rotation. So I'm going to get to the top, contract, and then I'm going to release and really work during my 10 seconds off of just cueing and externally rotating. I'm going to contract at end range, release, go a little bit further, and just keep kind of externally rotating those during that 10 seconds of passive resistance. And lo and behold, you're going to see the magic. It's just amazing how much easier it is. Last piece. Well, where's my yellow balls? There they are. Take your double lacrosse ball. Take your shiatsu bag ball. Let's get a little thoracic opening. Improve that pulling position. When we see athletes over tilt or overextend, they lose their internal rotation. As soon as rib cage comes down into neutral, boom, internal rotation comes back. So let's go ahead and just do some big gross rolling here. Roll back and forth, open yourself up. This is what we're working on. I've got to be able to keep the rib cage in and tight and be able to extend from that neutral position. God forbid I overextend and lose that internal rotation. So if I'm pulling, I get tired, I'm overextend, I pull here, shoulder comes forward to compensate. It's not until I get rib cage down and upright that I get that same piece. Same thing happens when I'm neutral and overhead. I can activate and pull that shoulder forward. If I'm broken in any way, can't consummate the shoulder. That's where we're going. Welcome to Halfway Mark Mobility WOD.